Brilliant, great. So, our format for today, we've got some amazing conversations to be had. As a facilitator, I'm always delighted when they present me with over 30 amazing people who we want to have interesting conversations with through the day. So we've got a series of sessions, and rather than people just giving presentations, what we want to try and do is to open up a series of discussions, sharing some insights, some experiences, and then drawing out some of the exciting possibilities, some of the challenges, some of the issues that maybe we all need to be wrestling with as we are trying to draw the urban intelligence agenda forward as a force for good and value, and not to find that we have challenges related to it that we can't deal with. So there's going to be a series of conversations, everything from looking at city governance through to new mobilities, urban sensing, visual informatics, education, and if we're still alive, new citizenship, and going right the way through to kind of what's this all telling us and where next. We could just dim the lights on you and have all the panels discussing here, but our feeling is to try and give the opportunity for some interactivity. And just right at the outset, the key way we're going to do this, because we'd also like to have a conversation with you about your thoughts and ideas. So we want you very much involved. So actually there are two things we're going to do. First of all, sometimes you come here, you speak to no one apart from someone politely at the lunch break, and you go home. We are a network of change, extraordinary people in extraordinary times. I would like you to spend the next 3 minutes looking either in front of you or behind you, to left or right, and find someone you've never met before in your life, greet them warmly, say hello, pass business cards, rub noses, whatever you do. You have to stand for this exercise. Great, so if we could come back together, please. Wonderful, it seems a shame to stop the conversation, but we've got a show here, so that's good. I just want to check, anyone met someone they've never met before in their lives? Look, wow. We have possibly, anyone met someone who seems that's quite an interesting contact. Okay, right, together we could transform. We need to scale up, speed up the transformation, bringing value into helping create better lives for all. And it's all done by connecting with people you don't normally connect with. So if my one ground rule for today is a license to speak to strangers, please do it. Just make that connection. The familiar is comfortable. The future is about new connection. So please use that as a spirit very much for this. And if you're looking in from home, just cuddle the cat. Okay. Now, one other thing before we plunge into content. Through the day, we'd like some interaction with you, less probably with microphones, but we have an app called Slido. Who's come across Slido before? Right, okay. What I'd like you to do is, if you are the possessor of a mobile phone, one of these things, I'd like you have a license to switch it on, and just with the URL of Slido, sli.do, I would like you to just register. It's free, it doesn't hurt, and you won't get any unsolicited mail. And once you've got onto Slido, I'd just like you to tap the user code of 122019, because that's going to allow us to interact together, because Slido is a device that just allows you to make comments, observations, or questions from what you are hearing. So it would be great if everyone logged onto that, because we ought to, with urban intelligence, we ought to be using tech for this as well.
Who's logged on?
Fantastic.
Please, everybody else, it would be great.
Yeah, lovely. That's right. Otherwise, you will feel a sense of exclusion as you go through the day. If you're thinking, I don't know what a URL is, there will be a student somewhere in the house who can help you out. Okay, so just to test, see how we're doing. Carlo, you're looking as though you want to check something.
I just want to say, I understand reception is not that good here, but if Wi-Fi broad, then you can be online.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Yeah, so the Wi-Fi, it's free Wi-Fi, no password required. So once you're in, just very quickly, what I'd like to do, we're just going to do a little polling question just to see whether it works. So once you're in, if you can tap the thing which says polls, there should be a first poll coming up. Here we go. Here we are. So who's in this room? I want to know who's in this room. So tap on one of these. Are you primarily, are you involved kind of business, consultancy? Are you involved in some form of urban administration world? Are you a researcher? Are you a student? Or are you another? So very quickly, just go for your primary one. Okay, just so nice and quickly, have a quick tap. This is the easy one. Fantastic. We have reached critical mass in terms of the number of people who are engaged with us, so that's pretty cool. Okay, in the interest of speed and efficiency, I'm going to give you 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then Sarah, give us the lowdown. Oh, has it not come up as an answer? Should it come up for all of us? Oh, everyone's got it apart from me. Okay. Why hasn't mine come up? So here we are. 32%. Where does it say that? 32% business consultancy. 8% in urban administration, a large number of researchers, fantastic number of students, and an intriguing number of others. So we shall find out through the day. Either I don't want to be pigeonholed or something else. So there we are, that's good. I'm just going to do just another question. So let's do the next one. So there's a lovely richness of people. Urban intelligence agenda. Just want to know where you're coming from. How involved are you with the urban intelligence agenda? So number one, it's my entire life, okay? Secondly, it's a significant part of my role. Thirdly, it's a small part of my role. And fourth, what is urban intelligence? Okay, so just give us a quick, I'm just interested in our level of awareness. And if you're putting what is urban intelligence, it may be that you're at the seminar upstairs about healthcare and you're in the wrong room. So that could be the case. Okay.
Submit an answer that you can see them.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, fantastic. So I think we'll just see what the answer is. Off you go. So there we are. It's for a lot, it's a significant part of the role. A small part of the role, some. What is urban intelligence? Great, fantastic. There are some people for whom today is going to be of high value, or they're just being cheeky. And what's interesting is that there's only 13% for whom it's my life, which is probably quite healthy for us all. One more, and then we're going to get stuck into content. So our last question at this stage is, just how are you feeling about the urban intelligence agenda as a kind of turnkey towards sustainable city futures? We're all seeing the city as the space where the great opportunity to secure a sustainable future will be achieved. Urban intelligence is a key emerging ingredient in that, all sorts of things going on. But just as you sit here, how are you feeling? Are you feeling really exciting, limitless possibilities, and it's really going to help us through? Second, yeah, I'm feeling quite positive about all the stuff that's coming down the line. Thirdly, I've got quite mixed feelings. Fourth, it's amazing stuff, but I'm really quite nervous. And the last one is alarmed. You know, woof, there's stuff coming down the tracks that we haven't realized yet, and we really need to be worried. Okay, so I've no idea what your answer is going to be. 5 more seconds. Oh, I'll do mine. Ooh. I better do, as a moderator, I'd better do mixed feelings. That's kind of as it should be. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Interesting. Okay, so no one is alarmed. So that is a few are nervous.
That's alarming.
That's right. Yeah. So I might run this one by the end of the day, so when you really see the real potential of this. So that's interesting that we have really quite a sense of it's positive, some feeling is really excited, some mixed feelings. So that feels as though we've got a space for a really interesting conversation. Okay, quite enough of the polls. The last thing to say is two things. In the right-hand corner, there's a little thing which looks like a little face. What we'd like you to do is through the day, if you get an idea, a thought, or a question, just tap the question, go into the questions thing, tap a question in. I will be keeping an eye on this, and I hope to feed some of those into our various speakers and panelists. Also, to make it a little bit more friendly, you will come out as anonymous unless you tap the little face and just pop your name on there. So it's just quite friendly just to get a feel of where things are coming from. So what we'd like to do is as we go through the conversations, we'd really like you to contribute thoughts and ideas and we'll share some of those with our panelists. So on to our first core session, and I'm absolutely delighted that we're joined by a number of mayors of significant cities. This agenda about urban intelligence falls within cities right across the world of whom there is an administration and so often a person supported by an organization that is trying to make sense of it, trying to manage a pathway through. And it felt appropriate at the start of this conversation for us to hear voices from some of those mayors who are wrestling with embracing urban intelligence in different ways. So I'm delighted that we are joined by 3, possibly 4 mayors. I think there may be one stuck in traffic. I know it rarely happens in Boston, but if our mayors would like to join me, first of all, if I could invite to the platform the Mayor of Stockholm, König, Jerlmyr. Pretty good. I'm brave. There we are. Great. And then Mauricio Rodas, Mayor of Quito, Ecuador. Fantastic.
Hi.
Naheed Nenshi, Mayor of Calgary. Great. And I think Jefferson is on his way. Yes, Jefferson is on his way. So we also have Jefferson Koijee, the mayor of Monrovia in Liberia. I'm going to come here for now because it's a little bit more friendly. But in this first conversation, what I really want to do, fantastic, he's with us, is just give an opportunity to hear the voices from mayors who are clearly elected officials trying to enable change within their city context. Wonderful, great to have you with us. Straight onto the stage, there you are. No chance of a coffee.
Good morning, nice to see you.
So Jefferson Koijee, Mayor of Monrovia in Liberia, great to have you with us. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite each of you just initially to share a few thoughts with us. You are all coming from different cities, different contexts. All of you are embracing to different extents the urban intelligence agenda. Sometimes you're drawing it in, sometimes people are knocking on your door, sometimes things are happening that you're probably not even aware of. But what I'd like to do is to get your sense as mayors about kind of what's going on in your cities and some of the key things that are beginning to click and work in terms of embracing that urban intelligence agenda. Then what I want to do is to draw out a little bit of further conversation about some of the concerns, issues, challenges, ideas that are emerging. So I wonder whether we might start with Stockholm. And I mean, globally renowned as a city that's really trying to embrace and get the urban intelligence agenda. Just a little introduction from you and maybe what excites you particularly at the cutting edge of what's going on in Stockholm.
Thank you, and dear colleagues and ladies and gentlemen and fellow panelists, I want to thank also the World Economic Forum and of course MIT for being here today, and also to networking with other mayors and to give this, and researchers. It's really inspiring for me because, I mean, we are also representing different cities in different parts of the world, but we face the same kind of challenges, and we talk about this all the time, you know, but it's social inequalities, about mobility. Of course, climate change is a huge, huge challenge, and of course also affordable housing and so on. And we need now more than ever to combine also research and for this innovation to find the new solutions. And therefore, I'm very proud also for this new collaboration with MIT and the city of Stockholm, but also the Swedish Royal Institute of Technology. And we will actually try to make Stockholm a new test bed for just innovative ideas and solutions for this kind of challenges. We are quite a small city if you look on an international level. We are soon becoming 1 million inhabitants, but we're working quite heavily with climate issues, and we reduced our CO2 emissions by 58% since 1990. So we just picked up the low-hanging fruits, and now it must be much more innovative solutions to really to increase or decrease the CO2 emissions even further, to walk the extra miles, and that demands new technique and new solutions. We want to be a fossil fuel-free city 2040, and that will demand really high-skilled research to be able to enable that. But I would say we represent a city with a lot of early adopters. We are a connected city. 90% of the multi-tenant residential homes are connected to high-speed internet. And of course, that's create a lot of early adopters, startups, and also unicorn. We are the second largest unicorn factory after Silicon Valley. And now I think most of the entrepreneurs also thinking about impact entrepreneurs, just changing the world if it comes to social exclusion or climate issues. And they're working all international now on another level than we've seen before. But it's not just the young people who are early adopters, it's also the elderly. So we created this kind of test bed. If I could just show 3 examples what we're actually doing now. For the senior homes, they can apply to be co-creators of innovative solutions, and the business and the industry can test new ideas within the senior homes. And a lot of elderly people just sign up to that, and it could be like sensors to see if you perhaps move out of the ordinary of your patterns, and then it's alarm that triggers, and that's one example. Another example is also how we have a collaboration with the public sector, the university, the industry, and we work with something called digital demo, and then we also test, have test bed and test solution that we can scale up. And one example, I know that many cities work with that, with the eye water, because we have a lake called Mälaren in Stockholm, and it's supplying 2 million with drinking water. So we have sensors testing the quality of the water, but also the pressure of the water, and to see if it's any chemical substance, and that kind of thing. And it's really making us proactive more than reactive, and it's another example. A third example I want to mention is also that we have all the schools connected to broadband, of course, and we also connect them with sensors for energy efficiency and so on. But another thing we do is to really find pupils in the early age to see if they have writing or reading difficulties. So we use artificial intelligence for these eye movement cameras. And in 2 minutes, you can actually find out if they have difficulties. So we started off by testing in a few schools, and now we are implementing it in all schools, because I think one of the problems is you find these pupils too late, when they are 14, 15, some, and we have these examples where you go much older, and you can find them immediately from the first day, and that is just another example of how we work with education and artificial intelligence. I don't know if I...
That's great. And I'm just interested, is there some overall sort of coherent plan for embracing all aspects of urban intelligence, or different departments, units, areas are seeing opportunities and are just embracing ideas as they come along?
But we have strategies, and so we also have a person in charge of innovation at the city administration, and we work really close with different collaboration with the universities to find scalable solutions. But I think we have to move faster. I think some ideas we have to go from a little test bed to a full-scale solution from an early phase. Another thing you have to test in a small kind of test bed from the beginning, but we have to work much closer with the researchers than before.
Right.
So I have to have some water.
No, okay. Mauricio, if I could come to you, Mauricio Rodas, Mayor of Quito, youngest ever Mayor of Quito, I believe. And I think you were elected in 2014. Yes. So you've had a chance to get your feet under the table and to make some impact. Quito, I think it's the second highest city in the world. What is it, a couple of million?
It's the highest capital.
Right. Okay, fantastic. And I think
and the nicest one.
Oh, it goes without saying. So again, just interested from your point of view to offer a few initial thoughts on how you are drawing in and embracing this agenda to support aspects of development in your city.
Well, first of all, hello everyone. Thank you so much to the World Economic Forum and MIT for the invitation. It's really an honor to be here and to be able to talk to you. What we've learned during these years is that sometimes the most simple things are the most effective. So when you talk about urban intelligence, you don't necessarily have to deal with very high-tech solutions. For example, we have used SMS text messages for a number of things. And that has proved to be very effective, particularly in a city of Quito, like Quito, where you don't have too much penetration of intelligent phones, but rather cell phones, it's widespread. So everyone can use a cell phone to send a text message for a number of things. So the first time we started to using this technology, which was, again, it's really simple, is everyone knows how to use it, was through a program that we developed to fight against gender violence in the public transportation system. The program is called Turn Down Harassment. And we did so because we found out that the level of unsafety feeling from women in the public transportation system was extremely high. And actually, it was a common ground for harassment on a regular basis. So we developed this program, Turn Down Harassment, through which you can report harassment cases in the public transportation system through SMS text messages. The moment you send the message, an alarm is activated in the bus, saying that there was a harassment report in that bus. 30 seconds after sending the message, the victim receives a call in her cell phone asking her what she wants to do. If she wants to have, if she wants to have support to start a legal process after what happened, if she needs psychological support or whatever, and there's municipal personnel waiting for the victim in the next station. So this is really simple. In 2.5 years, we have received more than 3,000 harassment reports through this system, and there has been a big number of legal prosecutions, and actually people are in jail because of this program. But more importantly, we have generated a deterrent effect for potential harassers, because they know, if they are in a bus and they listen to an alarm reporting a harassment case, the potential harasser will think twice before doing that again in the future. So thanks to that, we have lowered the feeling of unsafety of women in the public transportation system in Quito by 35% in only 2.5 years. So actually, this program has been replicated already in Buenos Aires and in other cities in Latin America. So since this is so cheap, it's extremely cheap, very low budget, so effective, we decided to keep on using the same technology for other issues. So then we created a program that is called a Guardian Angel, your Guardian Angel. So you can report not only harassment cases, but also you can report robbery, you can report health emergencies, you can report fires, car accidents, and a number of things through the same SMS text system. You send the message either if you are the victim or if you are witnessing something wrong with somebody else. So it also developed a feeling of solidarity in the community. So that's also very interesting. So you send the text message, it goes to an operation system, and once again, you receive a call asking what happened, if it was a robbery, it was a whatever. And they help you channel the issue to the respective authority to receive attention. So I think that you should look at every option available to determine what's the best one for you. Right? And we found out that this very simple mechanism has been able to engage a lot of people and to feel safer.
Fascinating example. Just a question come in here saying, have you seen as a result of this system, for example, more women using the public transport system?
And not only more women using public transportation. Actually, when we started the program, 8 out of 10 women in the public transportation system reported some sort of harassment case in her life at some point, somehow. Now, as I said, the level of unsafety the feeling of unsafety had lowered in 35% in 2 years. And of course, they feel much more comfortable using the public transportation system.
Okay. We'll come back and explore one or two more of the issues in a moment, but I'd like to draw in Naheed Nenshi, Mayor of Calgary. Must be doing something right, because I think you've been elected 3 times since 2010 into that position. Calgary is about 1.5 million, something like that,
1.3.
around there. Very high quality of life, standard of living. Just interested to hear how you are embracing some of this urban intelligence opportunities to take things forward in the city.
Sure. So to provide you with some context, Calgary, about 1.3 million people, very well educated, very prosperous place, but very focused on one industry sector, oil and gas, energy, and the last few years have been quite tough. As I always say, our valleys are the same as other people's mountains, but we are in the midst of a pretty big economic trough at the moment. But that also leads to some interesting opportunity. You know, I always, whenever I speak, remind people that we live in a moment in history where for the first time in human history, more people live in cities than not. And the urbanization of the world is continuing. By the end of the next decade, some 70% of people will live in cities worldwide. And this is a huge shift. It's the largest social demographic shift I think we've ever seen in human history. So urban issues are increasingly human issues. And urban problems are problems that face all of humanity. On the flip side, cities are, if nothing else, repositories of giant amounts of data. We know a lot about, well, we don't know, I shouldn't say that. We could know if we knew how to capture the data and use them properly. We could know a lot about how people live their lives. But we are, in fact, these giant laboratories full of data. And so from the context of Calgary, we think about this in 2 ways. One is, how do we use these data to better and more efficiently deliver government services? My colleagues at the City of Calgary, there's nearly 20,000 of them, live by a very basic mantra, which is our job is to make life better every day. So the first question is, how then can we use data, how can we use urban intelligence to better deliver services, particularly in times where all governments are facing financial constraints? The second issue is, how can we use those data to help economic development? How can we help entrepreneurs and innovators in business become better and provide services and products that people need by using these data? And so those 2 things come together in our overall strategy, which we call a living lab strategy. So the idea really being that, how can we utilize the assets we have to help people think about how to either deliver government services more efficiently or to make businesses work better. So I'll give you one example. Because of the economic slowdown, we have had a little less uptake in the development of some of our industrial areas. One of our industrial areas happens to be next to a big landfill, which is not as bad as it sounds. But what that means is that there is a vast amount of space that is either restricted because there's a landfill there, or is industrial space that has not yet been developed. So we've got some empty space. So one of the Living Lab things we've done is we are one of the few places in the world that allows for testing of autonomous flying vehicles, drones, in an urban setting. Since the land was empty anyway, we thought that this was a great opportunity for us to help drone companies think about how they can perfect their technology. And we've had companies from around the world come and test their drones to try and figure out how that works in an urban area. And, you know, I don't need to tell you, any of you, about what the potential application of that is, the commercial application of being able to get that right. You know, I have another example, a Calgary company called Take Me To It, which is attempting to merge the best of online and in-person retail experiences. So the idea is that if you found a product and you're in a big box store, Take Me To It uses extremely accurate GIS sensing to take you right to the shelf where that product is. And so we've been able to help them utilize city assets, warehouses, and so on, so that they can perfect this extremely accurate sensing work. So these are the sorts of things that we think are very interesting. And one of the challenges, of course, for city government in order to do this is that city governments are, by definition, risk averse. And I have to point out there is a reason for that. It's very easy for us to say, they just need to take more risk. But it's important to think about why we're so risk averse. You know, if I'm working for an investment bank and I make a terrible decision, I'm going to lose a lot of money for other people, and I might lose my job. So there's consequences. If I'm working for the city and I'm procuring steel and I make a terrible decision, people will die. And so there's a real reason why that risk aversion comes. So we have to be able to balance that with the need for innovation. We have to be able to get fast to experiment, but also fast to fail. And that's very, very hard for government culture that we're working on. So what we do, and this last thing I'll say, is what we do is we look for parallels within our regulatory system and say, do it like that. So Calgary is well known as a place for filming of television and movies. Little economic development plug. The Calgary region accounts for more Oscar, Emmy, and Golden Globe winners than any other region outside the United States. But what we were able to do was figure out a system where it makes it very easy for filmmakers to be able to get locations, to be able to come and film, to be able to kind of get around rules so that they can film quickly and efficiently. And we use that as an example for the Living Lab and said, if we can do it for film, let's figure out how to do it for startups. Let's figure out how to do it for tech companies. And that was an interesting way of breaking through that logjam.
Interesting, some great ideas, and certainly want to develop the conversation shortly just about navigating that way forward, particularly when, yes, you are accountable and risk averse as well. I'll bring in our last panelist. Delighted to have Jefferson Koijee here, who's the Mayor of Monrovia. I think, again, the youngest ever Mayor of Monrovia, and I think the first one elected since the end of the Civil War. Is that correct? So Monrovia is a population of about just over 1 million, something like that. Again, just within the context of your country and your circumstances and your city, interesting to hear how you are drawing down the opportunities of urban intelligence in ways to support the work you're trying to do in Monrovia.
Well, thank you ever so much. I want to use this time to appreciate the World Economic Forum for extending all this opportunity to be here and share our perspective as it relates to how we are delivering services to our residents. And interestingly, when I got this invitation, and what ran to mind is we were coming to Harvard and MIT, a place that people in Africa believe that it is the birthplace of solution. And where you come, you have the prettiest mind, the intelligence. So I just want to say to you, coming from Africa, using almost 16 hours flight and getting here, trying to make this day, because I've been very convinced that before I leave this platform, and the people of Monrovia will have solution to their daunting challenges. So on this note, I want to say to you how very much I'm excited and the kind of effort that we have invested in ensuring that we be here today. But the issue about Monrovia is Monrovia has a complex history. The country Liberia was founded by freed American slaves. As in 1847, it was the first independent country in Africa. But very sadly, Monrovia, Liberia as a country, has been lacking back as a country in terms of service delivery, in sense of catering to the needs of its people. Monrovia is one of the oldest African city. You say we have 1.5 million inhabitants in Monrovia, and I share the panels with my colleagues, and I hear the kind of engagement, urbanization they engage into, and you come to realize that we are fundamentally lacking behind. We are in a city that we have, one of our challenges got to do with waste management. We have a densely populated city that you, like he just mentioned about city. City is becoming the driver of our economy, and where rural dwellers, once they cannot find opportunity, what runs to mind is they try to migrate towards the city, and when you get to realize, you experience huge congestion, overcrowdedness, the densely populated community. So with that understanding, it brings so much enormous pressure on the leadership of the city. And you have then is rested upon the mayor, who is the first contact person that have to do service delivery. So in Monrovia, those are some of the challenges that we face with. First of all, we're lacking the issue of a safe drinking water. I heard you talking about women. We still have the vulnerable society where our girls have been raped. We still have a vulnerable society where young people are struggling to have job. And you have a shortage of jobs is not available. So we are thinking that we raise these challenges so we can be able to tap on the intelligence and see how we can partner with cities to see how we can use those innovations to address those long-standing challenges of the city of Monrovia. And right after you just mentioned of the Civil War, not just one of the Civil War, we also have a situation of the country, specifically in Monrovia. We have the Ebola situation in 2014, where we have, the epidemic took a huge toll on our people. Close to thousands of our people lost their life. And the reason why that's happened is because the city lacked service delivery. You have a very poor sanitary condition. You have a very poor health facility that can be able to respond responsibly, in a very robust mechanism. But with all these challenges, we are a very resilient group of people. We haven't lost faith yet. We stay very, we are very resilient in terms of anticipating that yes, indeed, we can inspire our people. We can be very hopeful that we can work with the leaders, most especially the central government. We can work with donors. We can work with people so that we can be able to engage and find solution for the daunting challenges that Monrovia is faced with.
Okay, very interesting. And I just wondered, do you find that people are knocking on your door, offering you solutions and ideas to some of the problems, or are you having to reach out to connect with people who might have interesting solutions?
That's the reason I said this invitation is very, very important to me, and that's why I took it very close to my heart, so that we can be able to lay out some of those challenges, right. And I will be anticipating that we have solutions, most especially like the issue of waste. Monrovia facing a fundamental challenge as I got to do with waste. And because we are very much concerned about our history about Ebola, we do not want to slip into that very unfortunate situation. So we're thinking about what kind of technology can we use? And I take cue from my distinguished colleague from Tokyo. He's talking about Quito, they have developed an intelligence as simple as is about text messages that serve as a guardian angel. We also want to see something like that because just before my departure from Monrovia, I have 2 communities that got in gutter with fire. I could not get them. At the mayor before I got there, over 34 homes got out of fire because we could not respond in terms of preventing those disasters. And sometimes we got children children are normally at risk. Car accident. You have these street peddlers, they're on the street. So if I can find an intelligence or I can find an innovation where we can be able to provide those services to prevent those dangers that is befalling the citizens of Monrovia, that would be something very, very fantastic for me.
Right. So all interesting, different situations and different examples to share. I just wanted to throw just a couple of questions that are emerging, but also some issues, because as elected officials, there's obviously a key issue, I think it was mentioned by Naheed, that there's a huge amount of data. Cities are enormous repositories of data. Just interested in a comment from you in terms of the kind of ownership of that and how you're shaping so that it's in a sense the city and the city authority that benefits in terms of being to manage and shape development. So obviously some data is held by private companies and all the rest of it. And obviously you have a responsibility to your citizens, to your electorate. Just wondered if any of you just wanted to comment in terms of that issue of data, the ownership of it and your kind of guardian role there. Is that something that you're dealing with?
Yeah, I think it's quite important that the cities own the ownership of the open data, but that other like companies, business can use the data to implement applications for the citizens and so on, so they can actually use that, and we share it with the universities and so on. But I think it's important more than ever to ask who is in control of the data and whose ownership of the data. But we try to have the public data as open as possible, and also for companies to get ideas from the data.
And is that a live issue that is being discussed also with citizens, or basically citizens say, just get on with it, deliver me better services, I'm not really bothered. I'm just interested in how much as sensitive political people as you are, how much this is part of a live political issue. I don't know whether Naheed or... do you want to just come in first?
I think it's very important for citizens to see result of their innovations as well. And one thing is it's a little bit of, we need to fix the basic, clean air, clean water, waste, and so on. If we can show from sensors and from open data, like on a real-time measurement, real-time data that the air quality is actually improving, I think it's important that we can translate that to the citizens so they can follow the results of what we are doing. So and also that they can use the data for if they are a part as co-creators of a test bed, then they actually also see the result of what they're actually doing. So it's really important to make it visible for the citizens.
Yeah. Mauricio, did you want to?
Yeah, I think that it is important to use data also as an engagement mechanism with different sectors of society. For example, we developed an app which is called Go UIO. UIO stands for the Quito name of its airport. And it provides beacons with information for every tourist attraction in the city. It has worked very well. It's a very useful tool for tourists, but it also provides information for tourist operators, for hotels, for restaurants, in order to provide, for example, promotions or different sorts of products for tourism in the city. So it has also worked as a way to establish a collaboration scheme between, in this case, the private sector, the tourist industry, and the municipality through the information that is generated by this app.
Right. Do you want to add a couple?
Well, I think there are two conflicting goals here. The first is the move towards open data and allowing others to experiment using the data to try and figure out what interesting value might be there. And certainly many cities, including my own, are moving in that direction. The other is understanding that data has enormous value. And for the citizens of our city, we ought not to be giving it away for free. And we ought to be figuring out what value there is in it. So I'll give you two quick examples. You know, in Calgary, we have, as many cities do, real-time traffic signage, so that as you're driving down the road, you can see, you know, this many minutes to the next exit, or this alternative route might be better. And of course, that uses the Bluetooth. The first time I talked at this conference some years ago, this was kind of a new thing, but that uses the Bluetooth addresses in people's smartphones and in their vehicles to track real-time the area between exits, which is great and super interesting in the moment. And then the data are discarded. Right. And so rather than figuring out a way that we could use this enormous treasure trove of information about how people are moving and commuting through the city to optimize synchronized traffic lights, to figure out how to move the city better, we just don't know how to do that. So the data exists, but we haven't figured out how to create value out of it, which is one of the areas where public open data becomes useful. On the other hand, I'll give you an example from another city, from the city of Toronto. And so in Toronto, at the moment, they're engaged in a very big project with Alphabet, with Sidewalk Labs, with Google. This has turned out to be an enormously controversial thing, because you essentially have Sidewalk Labs acting as a land developer, and with all due respect to our friends from Google, they're not particularly good urban developers. It's not their business. But if the city had simply said to the citizens, building infrastructure is expensive, and we are going to be paying Alphabet with data rather than with money to build some of your infrastructure, I suspect most citizens would have said, fair deal. They already know everything about me anyway, so I may as well get something out of it, other than, very specialized advertising for things that I want. But the city didn't do that. And instead, they kind of, along with Sidewalk Labs, I think both are at fault here, they kind of obfuscated the real purpose of what was happening here, and turned it into an economic development conversation. And as a result, citizens started saying, you know what? I don't feel very comfortable about this. Somehow Google is being let into my civic life in a way that I don't really know about. And so this issue of privacy with the data really came to the fore. And I wish the city had just said up front, and the mayor's a good friend, and I wish he had just said up front, look, the deal we're giving is we're giving up some of our data, and here's what we're getting in return. I think that would have been much clearer, much more transparent for people, and they then, as citizens, could make the decision on whether that made sense.
Right. Okay. I'm interested because, in a sense, that's a bit of a kind of rebound concern that you're trying to wrestle with. As ever, the clock is not our friend, but I wanted to draw just a couple more thoughts out of you. Particularly, I'm just interested. We are doing pilots, beginning to implement activities and all the rest of it. This is only going to increase, scale up, and if we understand it, is really going to be touch every aspect of city life. Is there anything else that gives you concern or pause for concern as a mayor responsible for your city, as this huge kind of avalanche of opportunities and change takes place, or does it all feel fine, manageable, we'll move it forward? Just wonder whether there's anything that you need to flag up that is either giving you sleepless nights, or if not, you're thinking, where is this all going to be lead? Anyone here have sleepless nights on this agenda?
Yeah, I do.
Sleepless moments?
Yeah. Yeah, but before,
Jefferson.
before I just flag on the sleeper moment, I just want to emphasize on the importance of data. And I think I just launched a program and about the issues about waste. So we thought about, first of all, it is the first time since the foundation of Monrovia, we launched a process where we can be able to have a data enumeration that each and every structure in the city of Monrovia, we thought that, look, we want the citizen, the resident, to take ownership, to get involved why it's true that we are anticipating where we can partner with the World Bank, with the European Union. So we launched that what you call the Smart Action for Smart City.
Right.
The Smart Action for Smart City, what we did was that we were able to contact a local company, and I was able to contact the local company, and the responsibility of that local company was to let us know, because we needed to have a data to know exactly, with all these numerous challenges that we currently face with, how can we derive a formula or a methodology in approaching those issues that are currently confronting us. So one of the easy way we discussed that, like, we first of all need to have the data. When we have the data, then we can be able to approach those challenges that are currently in Gov. So we launched that. The enumeration took place where we, first of all, Monrovia at this stage doesn't even have an address system. So we thought we want to use one stone to engage two ideas. One, we can be able to have the total numbers of the structures in the place. We also can transform those numbers into practical address. So when you hit into Monrovia, you can know exactly. So we did that, we conducted that process, and we have about 85,000 structure plots that you have up to 278,000 households. So the purpose of that was to ensure that we begin a primary waste collection. Where this time around, the primary waste collection, with homes now, the waste is set up because the culture back in Monrovia is that people take the waste and bring it to the skip bucket on the main street. And I tell you how challenging it is to work. Because sometimes when you bring the waste on the street, then the city government, with a gross lack of capacity with logistics to get those things. So when we cannot respond on time, then the street gets flooded with waste. Right. When the street gets flooded with waste, then you have the kind of an embarrassing situation. It becomes so embarrassing to the city. The mayor is going to be called. The press will take the mayor photos and put it on the banner headline that the mayor is not engaged. So I'm trying to tell you the important. We launched that, and I think it's trying to take effect. We took the numbers, and we're trying to talk to local banks and to see how the banks can get and can invest into the process. For the first time, we're trying to introduce what we call recycling. Okay. So we can be able to recycle and reuse, and hoping that that waste, like I traveled around in Japan, when I went to Tokyo, we got an idea that the waste can from waste to energy. So we anticipating to see whether that data being gathered by us, we can be able to use our waste from waste to energy.
Okay. In the moments I've got left, just coming back to this question, if we were sitting here in 5 years' time, trying to anticipate whether there are things that we need to be really thinking about and that are giving you maybe pause for concern as this thing moves forward, scales up. Yeah, Hannah.
One issue that I'm trying to address in my own country is the sustainable and sufficient and safe energy system, because all of this 5G, self-driving cars and buses and the Internet of Things, it will require a lot of energy, and we have to think about how we will supply the cities with sustainable, safe and sufficient energy for the future. And in my country, we can see that the government is not investing in like kind of the bloodstream of the energy networks and the grids. So that is one question that we're really trying to focus from the governmental side. Otherwise, we will not be able to have all this positive impact in our cities if we don't get the energy.
Right. Anything that's...
Yes, I think that it is really important to educate people on how to use technology. I think that that's still a challenge in many places, including my city. By showing people how effective the use of technology could be for their everyday life. That's why at the beginning I was saying that maybe it is important to start by very, very simple things. Yes. Right? But engaging people under a communitary vision of cooperation, right? And I think that data and technology provides that opportunity. Right. For example, we launched 3 years ago a participatory budget program through neighborhood assemblies. But last year, we developed a platform, a digital platform, so people can vote online for the kind of projects they wanted to be developed in their communities through municipal budgeting. It's working very well. We are increasing the level of citizen participation in this program through this new mechanism. So I think it's a matter of using what you were already doing, but adding the new opportunities that technology provides in order to outreach, to increase your outreach in a much faster way.
Okay. Naheed, anything on the radar that we ought to be giving pause for thought about?
Yeah, you know, two general and one specific thing that keeps me up at night. One of the general things is the whole issue around how we think about privacy in new and different ways. Because certainly citizens have made a deal without knowing they've made the deal over the last several years to really give up a ton of their privacy. And what value are they getting in return for that? And at what point do regulatory bodies have to make a decision on that?
Yep.
Number two is I'm very, very, very cheap. And I hate the idea of losing economic opportunity for cities. So I want to make sure that governments aren't caught flat-footed giving away too much when they could have actually received value, either in better services or financial value or other value from urban intelligence. And then the third very specific thing is, and this could be a whole other conference, is I feel like in this whole conversation around autonomous vehicles, the conversation has been focused entirely on the technology. And we have not had a good conversation about the regulatory aspects, about the changes to the urban fabric and urban design that come from and result from autonomous vehicles. You know, I'll give you one very simple example. If you ask citizens, should every autonomous vehicle have a manual backup so that the driver can take over in case the system fails? I would say close to 100% of people would say, yeah, that makes sense. But you play that through and you say, well, if it needs a manual backup, that means you have to have someone who can drive it in the car, which means an autonomous vehicle should only be operated if there is someone with a driver's license in the vehicle. If that's true, then a bunch of the things the technology people think about the benefits of the autonomous vehicle, you know, that they can park themselves, that parking is different, that you don't need vehicles in the center city, that mobility becomes a service rather than a thing. None of that works with one small regulatory change, and that's a conversation none of us have had.
Right, interesting. Well, you've teed up the next conversation beautifully, which is going to be around mobility issues. Just one last thing for all of you. Just in our amazing audience here, we've got students, we've got researchers, we've got businesses who are all in this game, in this business, trying to develop ideas, solution, technologies. You as mayors, and if we are to believe the cities are the space where we are going to either invent and create sustainable futures, you are the crucible of working our way forward for our what's going to be 8 billion population. If you had one message to those people who were developing ideas, technologies, all the rest of it, as you in your role as elected mayors in cities of citizens, what would that message be? And I'll go beyond the polite one of great partnership, lovely, good. Just if you are in a unique position in this conference to maybe offer a distinctive message of idea or caution or whatever, what would your message to this audience be? Jefferson, do you want to just brief thought?
Yeah, thank you. I have, in a more general way, I have a lot of sleepless night on several issues, but I will want to have a more specific one. I want to deal with waste.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to deal with waste. Waste. Waste comes in 3 dimensions for me. It also solves the issue of health for me. It also increase my revenue, and it also provide jobs, employment. So if I have an idea, if I have an intelligence, if I have an innovation that I can effectively utilize waste, and I think that process can solve 3 issues for me. Like I said to you, youth employment, health, and what you call revenue generation.
All right.
So I think I will look forward with the best ideas, the best innovation to see how I can solve the issue of waste in Monrovia.
Okay, thank you very much. Naheed, a hard-hitting message.
You always have to start with a very simple question. how is this making people's lives better? If what you're doing does not improve people's well-being, don't do it.
Right.
I know that the great opportunities that very high-tech, sophisticated solutions offer is very luring for developers. But don't disregard the most simple solutions, because those probably would be the most effective ones.
Right. Great, and Anna.
But I also want to talk about the need of prioritize, because we get a lot of ideas and a lot of researchers or businesses coming to us and say we should do this and this. And I think it's very important as a leader also to prioritize the most valuable thing for the citizens, which create most value, and then really hang on to that and before it's implemented in the citizens' lives. So that is one core message for politicians anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you to all of you for both what you're doing and also for your contribution this morning. We hope the rest of the sessions are going to open up some thoughts, some ideas, and no doubt some contacts that are going to take this whole journey forward. But for now, could we say a thank you to our panel of mayors? Thank you very much.